Sure. So well, let's have it. So my name is Patrick Rivenbark. I am the managing director of a company called Cloudcase out of Australia, and we do and digitize complex business processes, mostly focusing in the financial services industry. With me today, I'll let them introduce themselves. But what we are going to be talking about today is what does it really mean and actually mean to be digitizing your mission critical business processes? Because we have a lot of digital things, but that doesn't mean you've digitized your business and sort of seen the power of that. So we're going to go over what to think about, how to prepare, what actually happens when you do that, and maybe get you on your way to a easy pathway to the metaverse. We'll see. But with that, why don't we do a quick round of introductions before we jump on in?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us. So just good to be part of the 10th anniversary of Dig South. Fun to see the evolution. So I'm Jordan Berry, CTO and co-founder of Interloop. And our whole mission is helping companies become data driven. So we're really focused on data. The way we do that is by combining modern data technology, data lakes, data warehouses with our experts. So our data engineers, our data analysts. And it's all about how do you make confident decisions and grow your business. So.
Hey guys, first timer here, Jared Shaner. I'm one of the partners and chief revenue officer of a digital transformation agency, super focused on e-commerce, everything from a giant team of strategists, developers, creatives, awesome PMs that I see over there. Thank you for the support. Working on sort of the future of the way in which shoppers engage with brands and purchase.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Colon. I am the owner of the law office of Christina Colon, PA, and I also have an executive training company called Outside Your Mind, LLC. I focus on tech businesses and how would I describe this? The schlepping of a legacy company into the digital age. So it is the actual process of taking a company that has paper files, has a very hands-on approach, and creating a digital company. So right now I'm working in-house for a streaming media company, and we are creating a platform to be able to utilize our digital assets that we've acquired through different channels. So I'll be addressing how to actually get the brass tacks, nuts and bolts, take it from paper into the digital.
And when you use that example to just kind of give what we're talking about and set it up, and then get to these folks to talk about the different aspects of it. But if all of you have a bank account, all of you at some point in the month have gone green, so to speak, and you have turned that paper statement into a digital paper statement, but that is not the same thing as digitizing the process, right? That's not the same thing of, because you get it, it's a PDF and they say to call in, or they say to go onto some other website. So just because you put it into the digital world doesn't mean you've rethought and reimagined what you would do differently by accomplishing the same goal of that business process or product, but doing that in a sort of digitally native format, or some, a good example would be which things are mobile native, things like that. So Christina, I want to go back to you and talk about a big piece of this, which is around culture, mindset, preparation from the company, and then maybe we'll get over to the data side and the preparation, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest issues right now is the mindset. We have a majority legacy companies that are on this planet right now that are not digital in the least. I mean, we're talking about people that are utilizing Outlook at 1/3 capacity of what it's capable of being able to do. So if you start to think about incorporating different SaaS agreements and various vendor technologies that can really start to shift what it is that a business does, you're looking at a whole different functionality. It requires a different mindset. It requires an open-mindedness, and it requires clarity from the top down. And not everyone at the top has that clarity. So right now, one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with not only is the shift in the mindset, but also it's in how to handle data. I'm focusing specifically in data privacy for this company because we're taking a lot of information, ingesting it, and then in aggregate, we're utilizing it for either target marketing or advertising sales. So you're looking at an entirely other financial opportunity that could be left at the wayside. It's another chip left at the table if you're not able to get those mindsets shifted, allow for people to be open and asking questions without having fear of sounding ignorant. So that means that we as leaders in technology need to be able to be patient and not clap back, for lack of a better term, and be okay with somebody asking maybe what we perceive to be a silly question, but for the betterment of the business. So
Do you also want to talk about sort of culture and mindset at the beginning, or we can go talk about the data preparation, but
it's really up to you guys here, because I think ultimately you need to have a foundation before you build a house on it. So that mindset definitely is going to change how data is looked at, the way that the flow of data is communicated throughout the entire company, and then all of the actions that happen in turn as a response to all of those.
Go.
Yeah, good job. I was gonna say, to me, digital transformation is so much about that mindset. It's a shift from looking backwards to, every month, every quarter, we're gonna look at how we did, versus now, what are we doing today? What's coming tomorrow? How do we look forward? How do we adapt? How do we, lean into opportunities or mitigate risk? It's all about, shifting the mindset and then enabling it through technology.
Yeah, exactly. And where all that friction is also where all that new opportunity is as well to build from, right? So while we're talking about that, once you get over the hump, and we'll get to in a bit of what are some of the benefits or potential options. And one of the things that we're seeing is digital is much more, if any of you are at the beginning, sort of vaporizing all this sort of stuff, because it's programmable, because it can be changed, because it can be put into other systems, it changes what opportunities you have. But a lot of that starts with not just the mindset of the company, but also the data that powers all of this, right? Because that is sort of where all the business decision and logic and all of that can be used. So maybe you talk about data loop and what you're doing and Interloop, excuse me, and what you're doing with data and why that's important.
Yeah. So I mean, data in and of itself isn't all that valuable, right? It's how do you mine that data? How do you get insights from that data? And so for me, the ultimate goal is always the customer, right? How do you use this data to help the customer do what they need to do to service them better? I'm sure we've all called into a customer service line, and they're asking your name 3-4 times as you get shifted around to different lines. And we want to be known as a customer, and that's what data really enables. Is how do you personalize your offering to that customer? But there's a lot of hard work that goes on to make that happen, right? Whether it's going from paper to digital or digital to insights, and then how do you tailor that from the front end, whether they're coming into the website or they're coming in from some other channel, how do you get to know them? How do you empower them to be the best of what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's really important to think about when we talk about culture and also the data and the preparation is what data is most important, right? Like everyone can have data, but what are you doing with that? And when you're thinking about digital transformation, I think it's important as well to be thinking about how it affects the organization as a whole. I mean, in our world, there's always a stakeholder. There's a CMO, there's a CIO, whoever it is, marketing, sales, technology that's driving projects. But it's important to think about the implications to the rest of the organization. In my world, selling things online, it's not just about the sales or the marketing or the revenue. We have to think about the fulfillment team, the folks, the men and the women in the fulfillment center that have their own KPIs to hit. So the data of how quickly should a package be delivered if I digitize my business. You can't just think about like making a cool, data-driven experience or converting people at a higher rate. You have to think about those folks that are going to be affected throughout the organization beyond the stakeholders and make sure that they have a seat at the table. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I think that transparency really is what needs to be at the head of the table. I think that a lot of times with some of these closely held companies, you're looking at a lack of transparency. So you don't have the fundamental knowledge that a lot of these department heads need to be able to educate their staff on what should be done, how it should be done. And it's a shift in mentality. It's being able to allow for multiple seats at the table, even though it may feel uncomfortable. It's allowing your attorney to be at the business development managers meeting so you can hear what's going on, so they could snuff out the issues that may be present. I think that a lot of the people that are here in this conference, they're vendors, right? I mean, these are software vendors. You guys are the ones that are going to be selling to these legacy companies. And it's important to understand what that dynamic is at the table to be able to help implement what it is that you're offering. So by allowing more people to be at the table to value judge in their area of expertise or specialty, as opposed to implying or assuming that you may know, it really is an invitation for everyone to just be a little bit more humble and be open to divergent perspectives and recognize that maybe you don't know how the data is flowing. And that's okay. But then you have people like Jordan who are there to be able to help you along the way. And you have to be able to be open to that. And it's a change in mindset. There's really no other way of putting it. And that's not just for these sorts of implementations. That's really just, I think, in life.
Yeah, very, very much. So before we switch, maybe on the other side of, let's say, what are the benefits to get people excited, right? Because it's one thing to talk about the barriers, but it's another thing to sort of give people where they're going, because there's a lot of benefit to doing this. I mean, this is sort of an imperative for being in the digital economy from today forward, right? But before we do, is there any one specific item or task that were around that preparation, or a good question, or a good approach for someone who's hearing you all and saying, well, how do I go back and even begin the conversation?
Start at the end. Okay. I always tell people that I speak to, like, what does success look like, right? What are the KPIs that are going to improve the organization, improve your business? And you have to be sharing that with your various vendors, or if you're vendors, these are the conversations you need to be having with these companies that you're trying to help through this sort of transformational project. And the value of sort of everyone sort of on here is starting there, and being able to sort of tailor that digital sort of journey alongside. So,
See anything in particular?
I mean, I'm really just going to stick to the brass tacks here. Just ask a question, like any question. I don't know about anybody else, but being in a room full of people that are essentially digital natives, there's a whole other side of companies that aren't. And so you have this experience of, can I ask that question? Am I going to sound silly? Am I going to lose respect at the table? Just ask any question. And if anything, you'll end up realizing what your leaders are really made out of. Are they going to give you that side eye, or are they going to be open to listening to what you have to say, and then fleshing out maybe a real point that could help not just you, but the whole organization?
Right, anything?
I was just gonna say, sometimes it takes a good look in the mirrors. Where are we in that journey? Are we far along? Are we starting? And then just knowing that, there are different maturity levels, and you can still operate and be successful along that path, the journey that we've been talking about. But sometimes just a true self-assessment helps get started as well.
Yeah. So why don't we do the flip side of this, of what it actually means, and because there are huge benefits to going through a fully digital process, a fully digital product, whatever it may be, from front to beginning, right? And so we talked a little bit about things like there's friction points of, if you only do the front half and forget impacts all of the people in the back office, like that's a problem. And it's a problem if you only have half implemented your tools because you haven't taken advantage of that. But once you get past that mindset, once you're on this digital journey and you're actually doing it, what does it look like, right? And I'll give a quick example that, for me, when I talk about what we're doing around the world, we have a mortgage that takes 40 minutes, right? Imagine your mortgage being done in less than an hour, and that's a bank SLA down in Australia, right? That is a digital process that is really changing how people get their homes. And there's all sorts of things you can do after that. But what else after that can you see, taking different examples either that you've been a part of, what are the ROI, what are the benefits that come from that? So on the other side, right? After all that data works, maybe start with you, and you've seen your customers do that.
Yeah. It's maybe a little dramatic, but imagine you hop in an Uber and the driver has a blindfold on. That's how a lot of companies operate. They're just going off gut feel. Where am I going? I think we're doing okay. I'm not sure if we're going to get you there or not. Once you turn on that data faucet, now you have all the dials, the dash. You have all this information that you can use to operate. What turn left, turn right, speed up, slow down. And so that's really what companies get out of going digitally native and pulling their data together. Is once you have the tools at your disposal to tackle big challenges or take a risk, now all of a sudden you can instead of constantly being on the back foot, you can lean in and really try and grow your business faster, or help your customer with what they're trying to do. So it's a total back to the mind shift. It's empowering that ferocious attitude as a business, and data enables you to do that.
And two more things that you're getting at, which are not only simulate it, right? So you can use data to project out a little easier, but it's also faster to change because it's digital. And so a mistake is easier to correct potentially. Jerry, is anything you want to add to sort of what are those benefits when somebody gets to the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go on for an hour here, but I think the biggest thing is we should be thinking about these projects as sort of empowering the people within the organization. This should be the supercharger to your most valuable asset, which is your human capital, right? I mean, you can talk to Elon Musk and he's like, robots is going to take over the world. But, in my opinion, improving digital process, going digital native is all about empowering the core team and being able to have them leverage that platform to be able to increase their impact, increase their efficiencies, and then also more importantly, take away the boring stuff. I think that's where I would start, is the repetitive tasks that could be automated through leveraging a digital transformation project should be attacked so that your human capital can focus on the big, hairy, audacious things that are actually going to grow the organization, and then also make your employees or the staff or your customers have a better experience.
I think that with an enhanced return by using any digital process comes a lot of responsibility. So I can only speak to my specific experience, because I do think that these things are very different depending on the subject matter, but I do work in acquisitions of digital assets. So in terms of the functionality and the due diligence that's associated with acquiring a media asset, if you move into a software, a QC software, or due diligence software that could assist in letting that happen faster. I mean, I'm speaking at 2:30 on the future of gaming, and this room 3 over here, and the idea of doing due diligence based off of a technology. I mean, the amount of digital assets that we can acquire in an hour are unbelievable. But what does that also mean? That means that we're also acquiring, at times, depending on our interfunctional uses, we're acquiring a lot of data. And so with a lot of that freedom, a lot of that money that we're able to receive, that means that we also have to be responsible for compliance and a lot of the regulatory issues that come along with acquiring data that a lot of people don't want to look at. The CCPA, for instance, the GDPR. We're talking about data compliance and regulations that have very hefty fines. So yes, we can acquire, yes, we can start to create a lot more money for the company, but are we going to be prepared for that responsibility that comes on the other side? So I hate to burst the bubble. There's definitely something beautiful there for everyone at the table that can be offered to those that want to go digital, but that there is still responsibility there. It's not like it's just a hands-off, a driverless car situation and you're like playing on your phone and you get to the airport before you know it.
And I think, Jared, what you said there, and piggyback on that point, is the most important, in which you get people back to human tasks, like the things that we as humans can use our complex reasoning and sort of the nuances and gray areas that computers are terrible at, right? If we don't tell it what to do, it won't do it. And so the faster we get us in those spaces and let the computers do the repetitive items, that digital process is great, because then you're spending time with your team, talking through it, working through those culture items. So I know you have a panel here in 7 minutes, so I want to make sure you get to that. So maybe we could use this as an opportunity to kind of wrap up. We want something from each of you around that digital transformation process, something perhaps of how to identify one, or what somebody should do as the next thing they would walk away here to get back to their job tomorrow, aside from ask a question. what is it, maybe how they can identify what to do first, right? Because it is a series of projects and a series of items. It won't just happen in one fell swoop. So how would you maybe think about what could someone identify, or how they should go about starting from which process may be the best to start with?
Yeah, maybe a little contrarian, but I always think about it: people, process, technology, with technology at the end. So start with your people. Do you have the right people? Are they in the right positions? Are they empowered to make the right decisions to transform? Then you go to process, which, to your point, I think is the question: where do I start? Which process? I think it's the things that are taking up too much time that you're doing over and over again. How do you automate? How do you get that efficiency gain? And then eventually the technology, to me, is just the enabler. So then it's okay. We see so many people get hung up on, well, if I don't pick the right tool, it's not going to solve the problem. I would say the tool is probably the least of your worries. Just pick a tool, move. That's going to be the thing that helps make the change, is that action versus the inaction.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I really agree with you. I wish more folks I work with were of that sort of mindset. But the fact is, you're not going to get it right the first try, right? This is an iterative thing. We think of, especially the web, as this living, breathing creature that needs to be fed, iterated upon. There's new technologies coming out every single day. I mean, the last panel on Web3, I know nothing about it, but I'm sure it's going to impact my world as well as everyone else's. So get out there and do something. Try to solve your biggest sort of problem, which takes sort of brain dumping and saying, like, this is everything I hate, or this is everything that's maybe inefficient. And more importantly, if you're a business owner, check the ego at the door. You don't know exactly. Get out there and speak to your customers, speak to your employees, and try to sort of leverage their insights to sort of put a hierarchy of things.
So I think the process to your question, it's very similar to brain mapping. I don't know if anyone has ever participated in brain mapping. It's something that comes out of school psychology. And so basically it's the idea of mapping the flow of information, the flow of your own internal commerce within the business, literally put it onto paper, look at it, see what you're actually doing. I think that there's a disconnect between what it is that we think that we're doing and what we're actually doing. Very similar to the idea of journaling. You start putting your thoughts on paper and it starts to reflect differently to you. So it's really not that different. The idea of just being human inside of a company is now becoming more and more relevant, despite the fact that we're all talking about technology and this new digital revolution 3.0, you know, so let's just not forget some of those fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, we should be here for our co-humans. So, well, with that, I mean, I'll give you my recommendation as far as it's something different. Go pick up Competing Against Luck by Clay Christensen. It's a great book as a philosophy of how you approach finding the problem. What is the job you're doing? And that can help you begin this process if you're want to look at it more from a, I'll call it higher framework point of view. But with that, I want to thank the Dig South staff. I want to thank everybody who's here watching or in person. Thank the panelists for being on here and really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, shameless pitch, guys. I'm going to be speaking with the Netflix guy up there on the 3rd floor. So if you guys want to join.
The Netflix guy.
The Netflix
That's
guy.
the big draw.
So, yeah. All right. Thank you.